live with, I don't know, this is a huge get. Arguably the most influential comic writer of like 2 decades. He's shaking his head right now.
No.
But this is we are live with the one, the only Brian Michael Bendis. How are you, man?
Very good to talk to you. How are you?
We're doing well.
We're streaming live, so let me start with my eye is okay. It's just an eye infection. It's not pandemic related. I'm fine. I have contracted a very rare eye infection that literally my eye doctor said I've only seen this in Iraq. Thank you. And the medicine is only available in New Zealand, and so I'm getting through it, and it's fine, and I'm under care. But it's not. Every time someone sees me with the eye patch, they think A, I'm desperate for attention, so I'm wearing an eye patch, and 2, it's somehow related to what's going on, but it is not. I'm okay.
Brian, 5 years ago, I had an eye infection over the summer that my doctor said he'd only seen one other time, and I spent the summer wearing an eye patch.
Oh, so you know this.
I know that, sir.
I basically have to pour a diluted pool cleaner in my eye every 4 hours, which is just a great way to keep your attention, focus, and
eye injuries are the best, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're easy to ignore.
Yeah, and then there's this I don't wear this in front of the kids so much because the eye patch seems worse than just But anyway, I'm good, okay, healthy, fine. Yes, absolutely. So how's it going over there?
Things are going well here. We have an amazing community. They've been super supportive. We've been doing what we've been lovingly calling stay-at-home con because we're missing conventions this year. And
I know. I had such good ones planned too.
I bet.
But, oh, well. Yeah.
Listen, before we start, because he's going to watch this years from now probably, my 5-year-old Eric, when you responded that you were interested in this, I actually had to sit down. It never happened before. He wanted to know what was going on, and I explained to him who you were. So Eric Brennaman, 5 years old, in Atlanta, Georgia, wanted me to tell you that Miles Morales is his favorite Spider-Man, and thank you for making him, his exact words.
It was me and Sarah, and with the help of Joe Quesada and David Walker, and it's one of the great blessings of my life to have this character floating around. And the Spider-Verse movie, now that it's on Netflix too, it's just a constant hug. Like the internet is just this constant hug of all over the world now too. And it's in a million years, as great as the launch of Miles was when it came out and all those years people were supporting the book, I never in a million years thought it would happen like this. It's just so beautiful. So tell him thank you, and honestly, thanks to everyone. It's amazing.
Awesome.
And even like last night, the filmmakers did like a live stream, and I wasn't there for it because I was parenting. And and when I got back, it was just all the filmmakers. They're the best kind of collaborators, just giving everyone their due, and it's just a lovely bunch of people made this movie, and I'm just so. And that's like a happy accident. It just makes me happy when people I would genuinely like are doing work that I would like, and particularly around characters that we helped create. It's just amazing.
Well, that's the thing. Like, so as a comic retailer, we try to stock, our evergreen titles. And when you look at the evergreen Marvel titles, man, there's a lot of Brian Michael Bendis, Brian Michael Bendis, Brian Michael Bendis.
You know what? And again, thank you. You never know, and you try to aim for it. And I'm kind of a comic book historian, and I'm aware of like which events like lasted the longest and which ones were just of a moment. And even with all that thought and research, it's the audience that decides, like what ages well and what doesn't. So I would try to think of that in my head, like trying to make this like these things like how will they look in 10 years? Because the generation before me didn't have that foresight. They didn't know there was going to be like collections forever. Even when you read like the Watchmen articles, they had no idea there was going to be a collection, let alone, you know what I mean? So I think of the issue, and then I really think of like how it's going to live beyond us and how it's going to feel, and like what the energy of the book is like. And that I'm really kind of proud of on some of the books, like even Batman Universe. There's an energy there that's like kind of what people wanted during this. and that's been nice. I got to tell you, another, if I could be cup half full during a pandemic, and which it always feels weird. But
we need it. Go for it.
It's been really nice having people that stuck home with their books and just binging and reading. And every like 20 minutes, someone pops on my Twitter feed with some massive Ultimate Spider-Man reread or something, and it's really cool. Like it's that in these books, comics were like created during a stressful time in our country, you know, that where people just needed to be like with their book. Yep. You know, like, you know, during World War II, I just want to sit on the toilet for 20 minutes and, you know, not think about anything that's going on. And here we are in a parallel situation of stress. And it's nice that the books are there for people, and all kinds of books and all kinds of reading. And it's fantastic. So, yeah, I'm glad that these things are not embarrassing me years later. That's the other thing, too. You know, like look back and say, what was I thinking? But it's very, very grateful. Thank you.
Well, like I said, and I don't miss your superhero work, you know, Torso, Powers, Jinx. What was that? Yeah, Scarlet, United States versus Murder Inc. It's across the gamut. You've written some beloved stories and some stories that hold up super well. So
thank you. Again, it's having the foresight that and also talking to the professionals that came before me, and they would tell me, oh, I wish I knew, or I wish that I didn't know this was going to be collected for 30 years. Like I had no idea. And so I think about that. Like I even try to think of like, what format will they be in 20 years from now when we're all, you know, we've all downloaded ourselves into the matrix to get away from this. Like how will people, you know, enjoy these stories? So it's cool. Thank you. And you mentioned Torso, you know, just before, the shit hit the fan. I was actually in Cleveland with the director and writer of Torso because it's cooking. After all these years, Torso might actually happen. So fingers crossed.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was my last trip before all this. I got to go to Cleveland
before the big weirdness happened.
Yeah.
Well, hey, someone like has written so much, as prolific. Why comics?
Same reason you're sitting there. You know, there was some moment in your life where they gave you a feeling, right? Like I don't know what book it was. I don't know where you were. I don't know how old you were. I was very young when it happened. But I would read comics. I was definitely reading them to escape. And then there was a moment in my early life where I connected there's names in the front of this book. George Perez made me feel this way. Like I looked at the credits and I went, and I started memorizing the credits. And this is like back in like, you know, I was the only comic book person I knew. Now anyone could be fan of anything and find a community. But back when I was a kid, that wasn't it. You would just be alone in your room. Like I'm going to post something later. I actually have my first DC trade paperback, which is The Art of Walt Simonson.
Oh, wow.
And I bought it in 1988. And I remember getting it and going, oh my God, this many people like Walt Simonson too? Like who am I talking about? Walt Simonson. So it was just that idea that, there were that many people love Walt Simonson to justify this was very exciting to me. So once you start learning the names of people and you go, it's someone's job to make me feel this way. I would like that job. I would like to make people feel this way. I would like to be part of this machine. And then you get to do it even on like the indie level, even like just creating your own comics. You go, making these as, you know, hard as they are to make, and they are not, you know, it's not brain surgery, but it is, you know, sure. It is quite a struggle to make them and to make them well. You realize that making them feels even better than making it. Like all of it feels good. Like all of it is therapeutic. All of it is almost spiritual. It's a great experience. So yeah, I from an early age, I was like, comics, I would like to make people feel this way. I would like to be part of this. So yeah. And then the fact that they, in my lifetime, became a legitimate form of expression is amazing, because I spent most of my college years fighting with my teachers about how this was a legitimate art form, right?
Yep.
And to the point where they just put me in the corner with independent study. They literally go, here, go sit, stop talking to us and go sit in the corner and make your comics, which was fine. And it's what I needed to do. But I just thinking back on what a struggle that was versus how much teaching I'm doing now in legitimate like places. And it's just, I'm so, that is the thing I would never have seen coming. And I'm so grateful that I don't have to like explain what I do to people anymore. Like there was a lot, like early, even my early Marvel career, they go, you write Spider-Man? Do they make those? Do people make comics? They think like computers make, yeah. And that doesn't happen anymore at all. Yeah.
We have our store is right across the street from a high school. So we get a lot of high school kids come in, and it is weird trying to explain to 15 and 16-year-olds that comics weren't as ubiquitous.
Also, like in high school, I remember like you kind of hiding it like it was porn sometimes. Yes. Like you're like, oh, I don't want, you know.
Yeah, I used to hide them in books after school when I had to stay at school. So
yeah, not anymore.
They don't believe me.
Yeah, I'm deeply grateful for the world we live in for comics now versus where we were. I was ready for that fight, but I'm so glad we don't have to fight anymore.
Right, it's kind of trailblazers, right?
Well, I also think that a lot of us individually pushed that ball up the hill, like that boulder up the hill. Like all of us were out there trying to do our part to legitimize what we knew was the most legitimate part of pop culture. And I'm glad they finally took, like, you think about like Joe Quesada and Jim Lee and like everyone has just been working constantly just to consistently expressing a positive energy about comics. And yeah, I'm thrilled we're here.
And again, you were a big part of that. We now have TV shows of we've had a Jessica Jones TV show. We've had a Miles Morales movie. I contend you helped revitalize the character Luke Cage.
I'll take that, sure.
No, you totally did.
No, because I must say, of the many things I have to sit, like, people beat the shit out of me for all my Luke Cage stuff in my early New Avengers. Like, what, are you going to make crush on him? It was this constant, like, goofing on me for loving Luke Cage. And when Luke Cage broke Netflix's server, I was like, I win.
You did that. No, it was so cool. And, I don't want to stick around Marvel because you're doing such amazing stuff at DC right now. So I do, because we don't. No,
I don't mind. I just read this book, a Stan Lee biography by Danny Fingeroth, and Stan would really get stressed out about like only talking about his older work and becoming like a nostalgia act. And I'm not ever worried about. I'm very proud of the work. I'm very proud of what I did. I'm very proud of what I'm doing. So I don't have any issues with that. And by proud, I mean Jewish guilt proud. It's not fully proud. It's pride mixed with self-loathing and disgust. And even saying the word pride made me feel disgusted with myself. So I apologize.
Well, I was going to ask a big question that I wanted to ask you about DC. I remember reading how much shit you caught when you added Wolverine and Spider-Man to the Avengers. People were up in arms about that.
People were up in arms in the halls at Marvel. We were fighting at Marvel about it. My dear friend Tom Brevoort was livid when he first heard the story. He turned red at the idea, and then became the best editor ever that I've ever worked with. Yeah. Yep.
Well, but then that issue came out, and like I just remember reading the first issue. I was like, well, of course they're Avengers now. It makes sense. You had Captain America vouching for them, which I think, help. But
it's, and listen, I'm not right every time, and but I'm sincere every time that these characters need to evolve. You need to take chances. You need to try things out. Comics are perfect for that. Okay, so Spider-Man joins the Avengers. It doesn't work out. He goes back to his book. It's all right. It's not the end of the world. And if it does work out, wow, new story, a new path for this character at a time. And also sometimes it's just a moment where you go, it's time. It's either the creator's passion for the character or there's just something in the air that says it's time. Yeah.
So is that an organic thing, or is that something you have to keep an eye out for in your work, not to let a character overstay their welcome?
It's a bunch of things, and it's also, constantly reminding yourself that every character is someone's very, very favorite character, and for a reason, and to respect that a great deal. Like right now, the most controversial thing I'm doing is the thing people get most upset about me for is John Kent being aged up, right?
Sure.
So like we lost a couple years of John Kent's life, and immediately there was those who assumed that we were going to kill him or he was going to turn evil and we were going to break up the marriage. And it was never about that. It was always about Superman, like genuinely feeling that struggle of parenting, that you know, you can't control everything, and what that feels like. So, and for Superman to feel like loss of something, you know, it's not something he genuinely feels. And it's kind of carries over from what I was doing with Luke and Jessica, which was, can you have a happy marriage in comics? Because like there was a time when marriage was considered like, no, for any comic, you're going to kill that character. If they get married, they're done. And there was some good argument for that because yes, but at the same time, every time I would have this conversation with people, I remember thinking, gee, I'm so happily married. I'm such a better person married than I was single. Why can't we express that in comics? And not, you know, I don't know. I would like to express how, yeah, I have a partner and we're in it together. And, you know, and raising kids is tough and every kid needs special things. And, you know, let's take that for a ride. So, you know, I inherited Clark and Lois being very happily married, and I was very grateful for that. And then all the stuff that comes with your family just seemed right for new story, and that's why we're doing it. And the end of the John Kent story isn't that John went crazy or John murdered someone. It's that, hey, Lois and Clark were pretty good parents. He ended up doing okay. He was all by himself, and he handled it. And he came back home, and he's better for it. And that's a proud parenting. You know, when your kids are older, you'll experience this. Right now, you're like in charge of all of their, you know, your kids are 2 and 5, right? So they're little, in charge. Yeah. But as they get older and they go out and have to face things themselves, right? They have confrontations or just problem solving, and when they do it, it's so exciting because you know you've done everything you could, but now they have to take care of themselves.
Yeah, it's on them now.
So I wanted to tell that story with John, but Superboys in the DC universe are so ripe with historical, you know, trouble with Superboys that people just assumed it was going to go bad.
Sure.
So I got to play with that a little bit, but at the same time, I was excited to show people this isn't controversial at all. This is actually if anything, it's heartwarming. So
if you don't mind, I would like to talk about your Superman stuff because I am unabashed Superman fan. He's my favorite character. He's my son's favorite character. You talk about an experience that you had.
How controversial of you.
I know. Isn't that bonkers, right? It's controversial in comics. That's your favorite character. You talk about how you went to the Superman Museum and you had an experience. Do you mind elaborating on that a little?
No, it was actually it was actually at the Cleveland Public Library. I had not been back to Cleveland in many years. I had grown up there, and when you grow up in Cleveland, all they talk about is Superman, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and a little bit of Harvey Pekar if they're in the net, right? That's what they're proud of. And so, like even when I was a kid growing up in Hebrew school, and the rabbis would see me like just being all superheroed out, they would in their attempt to ingratiate, everyone would say, you know, Superman was created by 2 little Jewish boys here in Cleveland. And I did appreciate that because that was part of my journey. Oh, so you can do this here. Like it gets done here. And then, and just knowing someone else did it makes you go, oh, then I can do it. Right. And so I met with Dan DiDio and the offer was on the table and it was, you know, we were there. We were like, in or out, buddy. But it's literally saying goodbye to almost everything I built for the last 20 years to start anew. And I was headed that way because all of my heroes had done it. Like everyone I admire in comics had tried this. And but then I got a call to, I had a meeting at the Cleveland Library. And a good friend of mine is one of the people running the place. And I did not know when I walked in that they were running a Superman museum inside the library. It was there all summer a couple years ago, and it was, it's a library presentation, so it was very deep and it covered everything sociologically about Superman. And I'm just walking through it, and it's just like this wave of memory and wave of responsibility and how important he is and what he means and when he's needed and when he's not. And I was like, all right, God, I get it. I'm not, not those were like, Jesus Christ. I was like, well, how do I say, you got to say yes now. And so it was, and if people want to see it, I actually made a movie of it to show my friends and my wife. And I posted it on YouTube to show people this is literally exactly what I walked through and experienced when I said, and at the end of it went, all right, I'm doing this. So yeah. So you can go to my YouTube, you can see it if you want to see it.
And we'll include a link that here. So people who are watching, we'll have Jamie who is watching comments. She'll jump on that. So I gotta be honest, again, lifelong Superman guy, and I feel like Superman guys kind of get the shaft sometimes because, it's hard. A lot of people, aren't Superman fans. They have a hard time. They say writing Superman, but you get Superman. You brought the red trunks back. I
get a lot of credit for that. There was a lot of red trunks drama going on in the office at DC way before I got there.
Can you tell us about that? I want to hear the red trunks drama.
No, I wasn't even there for it. I got the blowback from people. It was very funny. I don't think they expected me to even want Superman because everyone comes in there and goes, "Where's my Batman book?" And I didn't. I was curious to what the Superman situation was. I also am very wary of like asking too hard because every book in comics is someone's actual job right now. So you don't want to go, hey, can I write Superman? Because then you're asking, can I take his job? Yeah. And I didn't want to do that. And but they were going to editorially change at 1,000, Action 1,000, regardless of me showing up or not. So it was just good timing. I was really grateful for that. And then Dan says, shorts or no shorts? And I go, shorts? What are you talking about? Like was it a question? He goes, all right, that's it. We're done. Shorts. And I didn't know this conversation did not involve me for many, many months. And then there were arguments and then my editor, Mike Cotton, called up and said, how did you do it? I go, I swear to God, I didn't do it. I would totally take the credit for it. But it was yes or no, yes, and that was it. That was it. I remain baffled by the controversy. I enjoy it, and there's no one on the internet who is going to insult me by yelling at me about those shorts. You can stop. It doesn't hurt my feelings. I don't care. But it's a aesthetic design element that I think looks amazing. The end.
I gotta be honest, before I opened a comic shop, I was a little bit more combative on the internet, and I may have engaged a little bit too passionately on the pro red shorts side of the argument.
Well, when we first started, do I have one right? I actually have it right. They DC when we were running around like South by Southwest, they made these they're like Victoria's Secret. They're very fancy. So they were a very fancy giveaway at some of the South by Southwest events and stuff like that. So for everybody who like gets mad at me for them, I'm like, dude, I got Victoria's Secret Superman underpants. You can't hurt my feelings on this. Anyway.
Have you worn them?
No.
I totally would. Well, do you mind if I ask you?
I got Ivan Rice drawing Superman all day. I'm not gonna put my middle-aged Jewish body up against that. No.
His art is killer, right? Like, let's talk about that. That issue, the issue where Clark revealed his identity, I teared up when that silent page where he reveals it to Perry White, to the point my wife asked if I was okay.
I'm so happy to hear that. It was, I've had this moment a few times in my career where it's still a relatively new collaboration. We've only been working together about a year, but you realize this person can do anything. I had this with Mark Bagley, where, you know, already an established, brilliant creator, and because they're so good, like Ivan is so good at the Space Wars and the Cosmic Odyssey, that many people lean into him, including myself, to do that, because he's probably the best at it in mainstream comics. But then in my smaller moments, in the more romantic stuff between Lois and Clark, I saw, boy, he's really thriving in the emotions. And like Bagley would do this too in Ultimate Spider-Man. These little moments where, like, wow, these characters' eyes are open. They're thinking. There's subtext, and it emboldens you to try things like Superman 18, because you're like, he can do anything. And let's create an issue where he gets to do everything. Right, including the silent pages, which I'm like, he's going to nail this, and he did. He completely nailed it.
Nailed it. Like I said, my wife asked if I was okay, and you mentioned Mark Bagley. Ultimate Spider-Man 13 is one of my top 5 favorite comics.
Thank you. That was for me. That was like not only just one of my also personal favorites. It meant a lot behind the scenes. It was still my first year at Marvel, and I came to them with something I had not originally pitched them. And they said, "Oh yeah, we're all in. Do it." And it showed such a level of trust that it was story first and not like gimmick first. And I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna love it here. This is gonna go well." Yeah.
I wanted to ask you. I was fortunate enough an hour ago.
And by the way, I emailed with Bagley last night, where it was. I love him so much.
People, Atlanta local, so he's one of ours.
Great.
I got to talk an hour ago to Dan Jurgens making the controversial decision to kill Superman. You made an equally controversial decision to have Superman, as we stated, reveal his identity. Can you tell me a little bit about where that came from?
A few things. Number one, how great is Dan Jurgens?
He's awesome, right?
He's really awesome. See, one of the like surprises of switching companies in this stage was, like, I had like all these people in my life, my work buddies, you know, that I knew my whole life. And then there's this whole other industry of people, some of which I knew and some of which I used to work with, like John Romita, right? But there's a whole bunch of people I never spoke to them. I never knew them. Like Ryan Sook, never even met the guy. Huge fan. And now we're like partners. I love him, you know? And so there's like all these new people in my life that I'm so glad I got to meet and spend time with. Dan Jurgens is probably the top of the list. He was handing off a 30-year run on Superman to me. And I didn't even click into my head until I was there. Like, oh my God, this is like Claremont and the X-Men. This is the huge thing. And he was so cool and so gracious, you know, to even, we did something together this week. He's just been amazing. I just so glad I met him. Anyway, sorry to distract.
No, trust me. I was trying not to do Chris Farley show with you.
No, but you know, it's a lot of people have spent a lot of money in Dan Jurgens' work, and it's just so happy I get to go. You're right too. You should buy his books. He's a really good dude. So, and the best kind of creator, like the kind of creator I want to grow up to be. Just helping all the time and just good energy. Anyway. So getting to Superman, my initial pitch was not to out him. It was not part of it. But I was like 6 issues in, and you know, this immense amount of research that went into it included the historical and sociological, all the stuff that Superman meant. And literally from the day Superman was invented, people were goofing on the flimsy secret identity. Like it's part of Jerry Seinfeld's act from 1987, right? It is an old joke, right? And it's been going on forever, right? And then you start thinking about, is that what's holding some people back from Superman? It's the some of this stuff it seems like old hat, you know? And then my kids were watching Avengers, and my son loves Thor. And I mentioned Don Blake, and he said, "Who's Don Blake?"
Huh.
And I'm like, "Oh yeah, my kids don't even know what secret identities are. Like even like Spider-Man, it seems they pull the plug on that one too, right? So who knows? I don't know. Should say I don't know. So I meant in the movies too, by the way. So all the kids watching all these Marvel and DC movies, secret identities aren't a big part of them at all. They're all who they are. So the idea itself, on top of that, people with secret identities in the real world aren't the best people. Like there's a lot of people hiding behind names and tags and to be crappy, right? So right now in our society, secret identity has more of a negative connotation than it does a heroic connotation. And I'm like, well, why? Then, yeah, and then there's Superman dealing with all this stuff, and then we had him go through everything, and then it felt like the right time for him to do it because he needs to grab some control of his life, right? He needs to like kind of get some control of his life back. And I also wanted to, we've seen a lot of people come forward with their truths after years of just being terrified of doing so and it being okay. Yeah. It was the right thing to do. And I thought it would be great to have a story of Superman doing that. And there's no sexual or racial or religious connotation. It's just someone saying, you know who I really am? I'm this. And I just want to tell you this so we can understand each other better, right? And I can do my job better and you can understand where I'm coming from better. And that's the story we wanted to tell and see how the world reacts to it because it's Superman. If you've got a problem with it, you've got a problem with Superman, you really need to check that, right? You really have to think of, wow, like who's against Superman? So it was all those things and it's never about the moment. It's never about what happens in Superman 18. That's a lot of emotional fun for me. I don't like emotional fun, but I was crying while I was writing it. I mean, like I don't know how to describe it as fun, but it feels real. It feels good. It feels like I'm in the right place. But it's the stuff that happens afterwards that matters. It's what's going to happen in the next few issues of Superman that will express a higher understanding of the character and the world that he lives in. And I learned that at Marvel. You can kill any character, you can marry anybody off, anyone can have a baby. And Joe would always be like, what do we get out of it? And if you can't say 5 awesome things, then don't do it. You don't got it, right? And so I sat there and I came up with literally a dozen things that would be new to Superman, including new characters, just new ways for him to handle things. And a lot of that's pouring out into the books now, including for those who need it. And I'm so glad books are on their way back to you because we've been making them the whole time this has been going on.
Yeah.
But coming up soon is a 2-parter where Superman goes to talk to Dr. Fate about his choices and the world that he lives in and why he did it. So we actually get some Superman therapy on top of everything too.
You had me at Dr. Fate. I got to be honest, dude. That issue, Superman 18, and his rationale for coming out was some of the single most Superman moments. Like, well, of course he would come out. And
yeah, it's just you know what it was, and I forgot to say this. It was like you sit there, think about truth, justice, and the American way. That's what he represents, and those 3 ideas have changed dramatically since they were thrust upon him. They mean things to different people, and that truth matters. And then he's got to lie in the middle of his truth.
Yep.
That and more it seems in the world we live in today that this world's way more complicated. That this truth has to be simple. So,
like I said, I could talk all day about that decision. I do want to talk about Wonder Comics. Wonder Comics is hugely popular, at least in our little corner of comic retail.
I am deeply and this one I'll say proud of without choking on my own vomit. I am deeply proud of the energy of this imprint and the books that have come out, particularly that did not have my name on them. Wonder Twins and Dial H, I think, are phenomenal books. And Amethyst is coming out right now, and we have more coming. Jenny Hex is coming. We have some cool new books coming.
Well, people ask us, they're like, "Well, why should I try it?" And the word that we always come back to is, "It's fun."
Yeah, it originally birthed out of me going, I didn't have imprint in my head when I came to DC. It was offered. They're like, hey, we're having a lot of luck with Young Animals and some of these other like they call them pop-up imprints.
Yeah.
That they last for as long as they last, like until you run out of stuff, and then we'll do something else. And And he goes, is there an imprint in your head? And I was like, I don't, the only thing I'm really upset about losing out at Marvel was the energy of the Ultimate Universe. That I really like the hopeful, reader-friendly, youthful energy of the Ultimate Universe. And I said I would like to come up with a run of books that felt that way to me, but that in no way made you say, "Oh, he's just doing the Ultimate books," right? Like, but the energy of them. And he said, "Young Justice," and I'm like, "What?" He goes, "We want to do Young Justice, and we haven't been able to figure it out." I'm like, "Done." And from Young Justice, everything. And then I said, "Wonder Twins," and he went, "Okay." which I completely enjoyed. And it had been, there had been many people over the years who had tried to climb the Wonder Twins mountain. And I was so grateful that I was able to, and also that the book ended up going 6 issues longer than it was supposed to. Yeah.
Mark Russell,
very
book.
Yeah. And you know what? And it was this perfect casting. Mark Russell has been killing it on every book he's been on. And I was like, we need to find someone who's going to turn Wonder Twins into the book you would never expect it to be, like he did with Flintstones.
Yeah.
And Snagglepuss, and he got into it immediately. It was fantastic.
So and I don't want to keep you forever. I know you're a busy dude. So what's next? What do you like when some semblance of normal, because who knows what normal looks like a month from now? I'm always, it's hard to like hypely promote what's coming next when people are suffering so hard. And so, sure. So do know that I'm thinking that while we're talking, but I also know that you give me something to look forward to. Right. And so in that regard, I can tell you that I'm very grateful to DC Comics for keeping the lights on and keeping us working the whole time. They made a very smart choice to go, our job is always running up against that deadline buzzsaw, which it should be. But if we have an opportunity here to like take a step back from the buzzsaw and just create some big ideas and big moments and just get the books in shape, what a great, so we've used this whole time. I've been writing like I've been chased by the devil, just writing just every, Superman, Legion of Superheroes, particularly Legion of Superheroes was a book that was just about to fall into the unfortunately late category because it's so beautiful. It's a beautiful book. It takes a lot. It's 34 main characters. They're all on camera all the time. It's just a lot of work for Ryan. So we were able to create a couple situations where Legion will no longer be late. We've got many issues in the can now, and that's awesome, including a very special announcement for issues 8 and 9 that will blow your mind. We pulled something together for Legion because Legion, on top of it being one of my favorite books of all time, there's a history with Legion of it doing cool stuff, like weird next level publishing. And in that regard, we have a treat coming in issues 8 and 9 that I can't believe we pulled off. So it'll be announced very soon. Very excited about it. I'm excited. I'm a Legion guy. Brian, I did want to tell you that our comments feed, we have people ask questions, but most of it is people just saying thank you.
Oh, okay.
A lot of people that are citing very specific issues and very specific moments. I'm also getting personal messages now. A lot of people right now are saying thank you.
Thank you, and I really appreciate it. I know that the internet's a weird place to talk about comics. It's hard to have like a proactively fun conversation without someone coming in, So I know for those of us who just love comics, it's thank you. I'm with you. I appreciate that. But going back to we have big stuff happening in Superman in Action. After the 2-part Dr. Fate run-in, which introduces a brand new villain, we also have our double-sized 25th issue of Superman, which is me and Ivan Rice back together, a whole double-sized issue of Ivan, and that also is introducing a brand new character, brand new villain for Superman. So we're having new ones there, and then in Action Comics. For those of you who may be enjoying Young Justice, Connor Kent is coming to Action Comics to figure out who he is in the Kent family. and how that all pulls up. And so it's going to be John Kent, Connor Kent, Clark Kent. Supergirl is returning to Action Comics, and Brainiac 5 will be joining from Legion of Superheroes just to visit and see what a toilet looks like. And it's called the House of Kent, and they will be going up against the Invisible Mafia of Metropolis. So the House of Kent actually becomes almost like a crime family in its own, fighting the other crime families on their own Superman level. So we got those going on in both Superman and Action, and then Legion, and then Young Justice, which will connect highly to a lot of this, and also will be introducing a lot of new stuff.
Man, I cannot tell you how excited that we are. Can't tell you how excited the people who come in every week to buy your books are.
Oh, thank you, man.
You're a cool dude. This has been fantastic.
And one more thing, just before I hang up, just so there's new Jinx World books coming, because you mentioned them, and I appreciate that. Yes. If the world would have gone normally, we would have announced 2 new Jinx World titles at WonderCon a couple weeks ago. A new book with David Marquez and a new book with Andre Lima that I'm dying to show you. These beautiful books. So when the time is right, we will show them to everybody. But we've been cooking them the whole time.
Well, Brian, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and stream. I'll gush thank you once the stream is over. Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Michael Bendis.
Thank you, everybody.